Hello and welcome to another Tech. Today it's Storvald, Frost Giant Jarl, I'm not sure. It's a 7 mana 7/7 giant with Ward 3 and says other creatures you control have Ward 3. And whenever it enters the battlefield or attacks, we choose one or both. One mode is target creature has base power and toughness 7/7 until end of turn, and the other one is target creature has base power and toughness 1/1 until end of turn. So what we are trying to do is making our small creatures big and benefit from that, and making our opponent's creatures small and benefit from that. So yeah. The thing with Ward, we are playing at least one creature that's just very good because of the Ward. Because if you don't know, but Ward is a triggered ability. Ward doesn't say spells your opponent casts cost more to cast, but what says whenever this permanent, let's say, becomes the target of a spell, that spell's controller has to pay whatever if it doesn't counter that spell, and it's a triggered ability whenever this permanent becomes the target. So he says himself and other creatures have Ward 3, meaning when an opponent targets my commander, the Ward trigger goes on the stack, and now my opponent has the choice of paying the 3 mana or not paying, then the spell gets countered. If he now says, I'm paying the 3 mana, the trigger resolves, and now the stack is again just that removal spell. But if we then, for example, activate Spellskite ability by paying 2 life to change the target of that spell to Spellskite, now Ward triggers again because Spellskite also has Ward 3. So Spellskite Ward 3 triggers, goes in the stack and says, hey, do you want to pay 3 or counter that spell? So with Spellskite and Storvald on the battlefield, basically means every creature except for Spellskite has Ward 6. So yeah, I think there's hardly anyone who's gonna use target removal on my creatures. So yeah. Moving forward though. Planeswalkers. We're playing one Planeswalker, Scarab Primal Hunter. For 5 mana we get a Planeswalker with 3 loyalty. +1 is creating a 3/3 beast. -3 is draw cards equal to the greatest power among creatures you control. The ability we're mostly going to use. And -6 is create a number of 6/6 green worm tokens equal to the number of lands you control. So yeah, mostly we're just going to play this and instantly use -3. So Garrick's going to die, but we're gonna draw some cards. Right. Next, creatures. We're playing 31 creatures. First one is Aberrant. For X, 1 generic and a green, we get a 0/0 creature. That's worth it. It has Ravenous, so if it enters the battlefield and X is 5 or higher, we draw a card. And enters the battlefield with X +1/+1 counters. And it has Trample, and when it deals combat damage to a player, we destroy an artifact or enchantment that player controls. So even if we just have this enter battlefield as a 1/1, like with 1/+1/+1 counter, we can turn it into an 8/8 with our commander, and then attack to destroy something, for example. Then we're playing Aberrant's Pilgrim, just a mana dog. We're playing Cephalid Constable, 3 mana 1/1. When Cephalid Constable deals combat damage to a player, return up to that many target permanents that player controls to their owner's hand. So if this is a 1/1, deals 1 damage, we bounce 1 permanent from the opponent to his hand. But if it's a 7/7, we can bounce up to 7 permanents. And it doesn't say non-land permanents, it's permanents. So if our opponent doesn't have enough non-land permanents, we can also bounce lands. Yeah. Then we're playing Champion of Lamphold, 3 mana 1/1. Whenever another creature enters the battlefield under our control, we put a +1/+1 counter on it. And creatures with power less than Champion of Lamphold's power can't block creatures we control. So if this is a 7/7, our opponents can only block with creatures with power 7 or higher. If they don't have anything with power 7 or higher, they can't block at all. Then we're playing Cold-Eyed Selkie. It's a 3-mana 1/1 with Island Walk. Has some invasion, which is very good. And it says when it deals combat damage to a player, we draw that many cards. So turning this into a 7/7 is huge value. Then we're playing Cradle Clearcutter. It's a 6-mana 3/6 that taps to add green mana equal to its power. And we can play it as Prototype for 3 mana, then it's a 1/3. And I think we're always going to play it as a 1/3 for 3. And then just turn it into a 7/7 with our commander to tap and add 7 mana. Which is pretty nice, because then our commander is basically for free. We're paying 7 to cast it. It enters the battlefield, and when it enters the battlefield, it turns Cradle Clearcutter's power to 7 into 7, and then we can tap Cradle Clearcutter to add 7 mana to our mana pool. So yeah. We're also playing Cultivator of Blades, 5 mana 1/1 with Fabricate 2. So when it enters the battlefield, we can put 2/1/1 counter on it, or create 2 1/1 Zero artifact creature tokens. And I think we can split it, right? No, we can't. It's not like 1 counter, 1 Zero. This doesn't seem to be possible. Then we're playing Elesh Norn Grand Canopy. Canobite. 7 mana for 7 vigilance. Other creatures we control get +2/+2, and other creatures our opponents control get -2/-2. Think about it. When we turn a creature from an opponent into a 1/1 while having Elesh Norn Grand Canobite on the battlefield, it's just gonna die. So it's just like removal. So yeah, pretty good. We're playing also Elvish Mystic, another mana dog, and another mana dog. And then here's Guardian Scale Lord. It's a 5 mana for 3/4 with backup 1. So when it enters the battlefield, we can choose a creature, and then we put a +1/+1 counter on that creature. And if the chosen creature is not itself, the chosen creature also gains the following abilities until end of turn, which are flying. And when this creature attacks, return target non-land permanent card from your with mana value X or less from your graveyard to the battlefield, where X is that creature's power. So just putting the counter on our commander and then attacking with our flying 8/8 commander can reanimate pretty much every permanent that could be in our graveyard. I think every permanent. So yeah, pretty good. Then we're playing Heronblade Elite, 3 mana, 1/1. When another human enters the battlefield under our control, we put a +1/+1 counter on it. It has vigilance, and we can tap it to add X mana of any one color, where X is its power. So again, with our commander's trigger, we can just turn it into a 7/7 to add 7 mana of any color even. Then we're playing Kami of Whispered Hopes, 3 mana, 1/1. If 1/1 +1/+1 counter would be put on a permanent we control, that many +1/+1 counters are put on it instead. And it also can tap to add X mana of any one color to our mana pool, where X is its power. Then we're playing Lifeblood Hydra. It's a 3 green and X, and it's a battlefield with X +1/+1 counter. It has trample, and when it dies, we gain life and draw cards equal to its power. Then we're playing Glanova Elves, another mana dog. Is Marvin the Nurturer, 3 mana, 1/1. When another elf enters the battlefield under our control, we put a +1/+1 counter on it, and we can tap it to add green equal to its power. Then there's Master Biomancers, 4 mana, 2/4. Each other creature you control enters the battlefield with a number of +1/+1 counters on it, equal to mana Master Biomancer's power, and is a mutant in addition to its other types. So when we turn Master Biomancer into a 7/7, all creatures that we have enter the battlefield under our control enters the battlefield with 7 +1/+1 counters, and as a mutant in addition to its other types. So yeah, pretty good. Then we're playing Min Willy Illusionist. It's a 3 mana, 1/3. It says whenever we draw our second card each turn, we create a 1/1 blue illusion creature token with this creature gets +1/+0 for each other illusion we control, and when an illusion we control dies, we may put a permanent card with mana value less than or equal to that creature's power from our hand onto the battlefield. So we can just turn one of those illusions into a 7/7, have it getting killed or sacrificing it, to then put a 7 mana permanent from our hand onto the battlefield, which is really good. Then we're playing Pathbreaker, Ibex, 6 mana, 3/3 goat. When it attacks, creatures we control gain trample and +X/+X, including itself, where X is the greatest power among creatures we control. Just very good finisher. Then we're playing Prime Speaker Zagana, 6 mana, 1/1. When it enters the battlefield, it enters the battlefield with X +1/+1 counter on it, where X is the greatest power among creatures we control. And when it enters the battlefield, we draw cards equal to its power. So this most of the time enters the battlefield as an 8/8, I'd say. And then we draw 8 cards. Sounds good to me. Then we're playing Sylvala, Heart of the Wilds, 3 mana, 2/3. Whenever another creature enters the battlefield, its controller may draw a card if its power is the greatest power among all creatures on the battlefield. And for 1 green and tap, we add X mana in any combination of colors to our mana pool, where X is the greatest power among creatures we control. Then we're playing Sigardian Zealot, 5 mana, 3/3. At the beginning of combat on your turn, choose any number of creatures with different powers. Each of them gets +X/+X and Vigilance until end of turn, where X is Sigardian Zealot's power. Then we're playing Spawnbroker. This is an interesting card. 3 mana, 1/1. When it comes into play, you may exchange control of target creature you control and target creature with power less than or equal to that creature's power an opponent controls. So basically, the plan is to turn an opponent's creature into a 1/1 and then play this and exchange the control with the creature of our opponent's control that we just turned into 1/1 with this itself. So our opponent gets Spawnbroker and we get their, let's say, Vorinclex. So yeah, pretty good. Then we're playing Spellskite. I already explained that card. We're also playing Tanasir Quandrix, 5 mana, 4/4 flying trample, Elder Dragon. When it enters the battlefield, double the number of +1/+1 counter on target creature we control, and when it attacks, we may have the base power and toughness of other creatures we control become equal to his power. So yeah, pretty good. You have to imagine, when we go into combat and declare attackers, then we have a bunch of attack triggers on the stack. And attack triggers like Tanasir Quandrix, they don't check the power and toughness when they go on the stack. They check it when they resolve. So when this attack trigger goes in the stack, where we may have all other creatures' base power and toughness become equal to his base power and toughness, we can say that this attack trigger is laying underneath our commander's attack trigger on the stack. So our commander is first going to turn Tanasir Quandrix into a 7/7, and then Tanasir Quandrix is turning all other creatures we control into 7/7s. So yeah, pretty good. Then we're playing Tanuki Transplanter, 4 mana, 2/4. When it or a crypt creature attacks, add an amount of green mana equal to its power to your mana pool. You don't lose that mana until end of turn when steps and phases end, and has reconfigure for 3 mana. So for 3 mana we can basically, it's not transform, but we can equip it to a creature, and then itself is not a creature anymore. It's just an equipment that's equipped to a creature. We're also playing Tervigon. Again, X and 1 generic and 1 green with Ravenous. So when X is 5 or higher, we draw a card and it enters the battlefield with X +1/+1 counter. It has Trample. And when it deals combat damage to a player, we create that many 1/1 green Tyrannid creature tokens. So it's just a token producer. We're playing Thrix, the Sudden Storm, 5 mana, flash, flying, 4/5. Spells we cast that have converted mana cost 5 or greater, cost 1 less to cast, and can't be countered. So pretty good. Here's Trigon Prime, 4 mana, 4/4. When it attacks, we put a +1/+1 counter on it and a +1/+1 counter on up to one other target attacking creature, and then that creature can't be blocked this turn. So this can still be blocked, but the other creature we are putting a +1/+1 counter on it cannot be blocked this turn. Then we are playing Viridian Joiner, 3 mana, 1/2, tap to add tap to add an amount of green mana to your mana pool equal to its power. And here the last creature, White Beastmaster, 3 mana, 1/1, and when it attacks, each other creature we control gets +X/+X, where X is equal to its power. Usually this card is not as good because it's a 1/1, but since our commander can turn it into a 7/7, it's just fine. Then we're playing Balagat Recovery. It's a regrowth for 3 mana, and on the backside it's tapped land. Playing Cultivate, Farewell, Kodama's Reach, Life's Legacy. Life's Legacy is a 2 mana sorcery that says as an additional cost to cast a spell, sacrifice a creature, and then we draw cards equal to the sacrificed creature's power. Then there's Nature's Law, Rishka's Expertise, Seagate Restoration. It also is a land on the backside that enters the battlefield tapped, except for when we pay 3 life, then it enters the battlefield untapped. Imagine there are lands that enter the battlefield tapped, except for when you pay mana. Like, this land enters the battlefield tapped when you don't pay 3 mana or something. Like, worst land cycle ever. So yeah, and on the front side it says draw cards equal to the number of cards in your hand +1. You don't have a maximum hand size for the rest of the game. We're playing Skyshroud Claim and Supreme Verdict and 3 Visits and Vanquish the Horde. Then instance, Arcane Denial, counter target spell. That spell's controller draws 2 cards at the beginning of the next at the beginning of the next upkeep, and we draw 1 card at the beginning of the next upkeep. Then there's Beast Within, 3 mana, destroy target permanent. Its controller creates a 3/3 green beast creature token. Delay, counter target spell, exile that spell instead of putting it anywhere else. If it doesn't have suspend, it gains suspend, and we put 3 time counter on it. And at the beginning of its controllers or owners upkeep, a time counter gets removed, and when the third time counter or last time counter gets removed, its controller or owner can cast that spell without paying its mana cost. Then we're playing Dovin's Veto, Generous Gift, Hunter's Insight. It's also interesting. 3 mana instant, choose target creature you control. Whenever that creature deals combat damage to a player or planeswalker this turn, we draw that many cards. Then there's Memory Lapse, counter target spell and put that spell on top of its owner's library instead of putting it into its owner's graveyard. Then there's Momentous Fall, 4 mana instant, as an additional cost to cast a spell, sacrifice a creature, and then we draw cards equal to that creature's power and gain life equal to that creature's toughness. Oops. Then there's Negate, counter target non-creature spell, Ram Through, 2 mana instant, target creature you control deals damage equal to its power to target creature you don't control. If the creature you control has trample, excess damage is dealt to that creature's controller. So, for example, if this Pathbreaker Ibex gives all our creatures trample when its attack trigger resolves, and then we can still, before blocker declare, actually it doesn't really matter, but yeah, we could cast Ram Through, and then let's say our Pathbreaker is 6/6. And our opponent has a creature that's 2/2. Pathbreaker Ibex is dealing 2 damage to that creature and 4 damage to that creature's controller. It's not dealing 6 damage to that creature. So, yeah. Then we have Return of the Wildspeaker, 5 mana instant, choose 1. Draw cards equal to the greatest power among non-human creatures you control, or non-human creatures you control get +3/+3 until the turn. We are playing some humans, like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. We're playing 6 humans, so I guess most of our creatures are not humans. Right. Next was the Plowshares, and then there's Vanish into Memory. I also uploaded a short about that card. 4 mana instant, exile target creature. You draw cards equal to that creature's power, and at the beginning of your next upkeep, return that card to the battlefield under its owner's control if you do discard cards equal to that creature's toughness. So, if we have this card, and we just targeted it with our commander's ETB or attack trigger. So let's say it's an 8/8. And then we cast Vanish into Memory on it. We draw 8 cards, and at the beginning of our next upkeep, it comes back as a 0/0. It dies, and we discard 0 cards. Yay! So yeah, essentially another momentous fall in this deck, hopefully. But not really worse, just a bit different. Artifacts: Arcane Signet, Sword Ring, Swiftfoot Boots, and the Great Henge. Great Henge is just like easily always going to be 2 mana in this deck. So, yeah. Then enchantments is Evolutionary Leap, 2 mana enchantment, and you can activate it for 1 green and sacrifice a creature. Then you reveal from the top of your library until you reveal a creature card, and put the card into your hand, and put the rest on the bottom of your library in a random order. And then we're also playing Greater Good, 4 mana in enchantment. We can activate it by sacrificing a creature, and then we draw cards equal to the sacrificed creature's power, and then we discard 3 cards. And then we have lands. There's this one special land, it's Arena. It's a land that can't tap for mana, but it says pay 3 mana, tap it, tap target creature you control and target creature of an opponent's choice he or she controls. Each of those creatures deal damage equal to its power to the other. So basically just removal on a land that's not necessarily too good, but there will be moments where our opponent only has his commander or like 2 or 3 very valuable creatures on his battlefield, and then this is quite good. And then we're playing just the cheap end of a 3-color land base. Right. Okay. So we're basically through. I'd say Storvald is definitely not as popular as he could be. I think every player who doesn't like when his creatures are killed by single target removal should build a deck around Storvald Frost Giant. And yeah, I'd say this deck is pretty good. It's almost 200 euros in Germany, so for you Americans, I'd say it's about 260, 280. We can just wait. Card Kingdom TCG? TCG? Let's check. TCG. Save changes. Alright. Back to the deck. Okay. 260. Oh, not bad. On TCG player. So if we now change it to Cool Stuff Inc., then it's... Whoa! What? No way! What the fuck? Is Cool Stuff Inc. so cheap? And then there is... 362? Oh, hell no. Well, okay, I'm gonna stick with Card Market, guys. I'm German, so yeah. This is okay for a deck. Most of my decks are around this price tag, and I'd say if I had this deck in paper, which I don't, it would be one of my strongest. I'm not playing very strong decks, so yeah. I hope you had fun watching this deck tech, and I hope you have a nice day. See you.